It is I, Alphinaud, doing actual content and not just a run. I'm going to be talking about one of the most popular characters of this month that is coming up pretty soon, Gladiolus Amicitia from Final Fantasy 15. And I'm not the greatest at commentary, so I have someone with me who you're oh so well familiar with. So go ahead and introduce yourself again.
Oh, thank you, Alfred. I appreciate the compliment. Hello, everyone. Soul here. I'm sure you all have heard that, 16 dozen times. Fun fact: I do try to actually mix up my intros, but whenever I start a video, I just blank. So I just go with the tried and true. Yeah, like Alfie, I just kind of do runs myself, and I occasionally branch out. But he asked me if I wanted to do a Gladio video with him, and I was more than eager because this character is something else. So talking about him is going to be a treat.
Oh yeah, he's a character, all right. And for those watching on Soul's perspective, hello, I am Alphinaud. I mostly do non-commentated runs. I play both JP and the global versions of the City of Final Fantasy Opera Omnia. On global, I try to use my two favorite characters, Alphinaud and Lise, as much as possible. And on JP, I try to use Caius as much as possible, one of my favorite villains. And yeah, if you like non-commentated videos, I do a lot of Final Fantasy 14 love on my videos, because needless to say, I'm a big fan of Final Fantasy 14. Well, you can come on and stop by. So without further ado, let us go over Gladio's kit, because oh boy, looking over Gladio's kit, I am reminded at why this man is an absolute unit. Quite literally.
Why he's still being used in Lufenia today, and JP, yeah.
Yep, past 9, 10, 12, however long he's been out. Oh boy, it's a lot. Okay, so his skill 1, Tempest, it has 6 uses. It raises his bravery based on his attack. It's AoE brave damage with split HP damage. He gets 2 stacks of this buff called King's Shield to himself for 10 turns. He grants Royal Guard to all allies for 10 turns. That is a framed buff. That is a framed buff on your teammates. So his buff, King's Shield, it goes up to 10 stacks. His stacks increase by 1 every time he receives a hit. And if he uses S2, or not S2, is S1 again, that'll increase his stacks up by 2, and so forth and so forth on, up to 10 stacks. So, Royal Guard. So if similarly to Gallop, if a teammate gets attacked with a single target attack, when they have Royal Guard up, instead of that person getting attacked, it will be Gladio that takes place of that teammate and to absorb all the damage. Not literally, but he'll take the hit for your teammate instead. His King's Shield buff, it's a pretty loaded buff. It raises his max Raven attack, it's 4% at 1 stack, and he gets an additional 4% per stack up to 40%. So at his max 10 stacks, that is 40% max Raven attack for himself. He raises his defense by 80%. His brave damage taken is reduced by 60%, and his HP damage taken is reduced by 20%. Pretty loaded buff for himself. Royal Guard, the buff on your teammates, not as loaded, but it's still pretty good. It reduces their brave damage taken by 60%, and it reduces HP damage taken by 20%. Same as Gladio's, except it does not have the max Raven attack or the defense. So you might be wondering, well, why would your teammates take that if, Gladio's just going to take the hit for them anyway? Well, that's for AoE damage. It's just like Gallop. Gladio will only take the hit for your teammates if it is single target damage, otherwise AoE damage will still hit your entire party, and so that Royal Guard buff is mainly just there to protect your party from AoE damage. Skill 2 is Dawn Hammer. It is 8 uses. It raises his bravery based on attack. It is AoE brave damage with single target HP damage, so there's no split, there's no splash on it, and it raises the party bravery based on HP damage dealt. Additionally, it inflicts 40% generic max brave down on the target enemy, so only on the enemy you're targeting it'll inflict max brave down. He grants himself Pride of the Crown's Guard for 6 turns, and this buff It raises his own max brave and attack by 40% again. It turns his brave attack and HP attack into brave pluses and HP pluses. His brave plus, it raises the party's bravery by 70% of attack before attacking, and it's a 2-hit melee single target brave attack. A basic bravery attack, you know, it's just a battery. HP plus plus. That is, he batteries himself, does 2 hits, melee, single target, brave, and HP attack. And he batteries the party based off of HP damage dealt. So, think of it like a Y'shtola HP plus, where it's a battery, and then you battery the whole party based off of the HP damage you deal. And it's not just your party, it's the entire party, so kind of redundant. So Gladio will protect himself as well, because he'll also be battering himself. It's not just his other 2 party members. He'll battery himself, so he doesn't even leave himself open from his own HP plus. His C65 skill, he recovers his own HP by 30%, and he raises the party's max brave for 3 turns. Pretty nice C65 skill. Helps him heal back up pretty quickly, because this man has a lot of HP, and we'll get into why he has a lot of HP a little bit later. His EX skill, it is Maelstrom. It is 4-hit single target melee brave and HP attack delivered 3 times, and he gets 20% brave cashback base of HP damage dealt in between the HP dumps. This is a very, very hard-hitting EX skill. This is one of Gladio's main DPS tools, obviously, because it's really strong, 3 HP dumps. Afterwards, he batteries the whole party based off of his attack after the last HP attack. Additionally, he grants himself 2 stacks of this buff called Warrior's Trial. It is another stack buff that goes up to 10 stacks. And just like his S1 buff, he gets 1 stack of Warrior's Trial when he receives an attack. That helps build his stacks all the way up to 10 stacks. And his Warrior's Trial buff, this is a very nice buff as well. So, Warrior's Trial, it raises the party's attack and stolen max brave overflow 22% at 1 stack, and he gets an additional 2% per stack up to 40%. Oh boy, get ready, get used to that 40% number, because we're going to see it a lot.
that is very true.
And he also grants party HP regen via an aura. It is 2% at 1 stack, and he gets an additional 2% per stack up to 20%. So, if Warrior Trial is at 10 stacks, he just grants 20% HP regen via an aura.
Sorry, not to interrupt. Just absolute insanity. We'll touch more upon it, but the thing you guys will notice as he's reading these buffs off is that it's kind of like, I think the first really loaded frame buff we saw was Agrius, where Agrius' frame buff had like 3 or 4 different effects. That's pretty much Gladio in a nutshell, but he has 4 of these frame buffs, and they all have like 6 trillion different things happening, so it's insane. But sorry, Alfie, go ahead.
We're not done yet, because oh boy, his LD, if you were to ask me, and all of the time I've used Gladio, I'd say this is why he is such a busted, ridiculous character. His LD skill, Impulse, it is 3 uses. It is 8 hits AoE Brave and HP attack with split damage. He batteries the party based off of the total HP damage dealt. And, oh man, he grants a very, very infamous buff to himself called Perfect Guard for 3 turns, which can be buff extended, keep in mind. Oh man, this buff, Perfect Guard, it reduces Brave and HP damage to self, for himself, received to 0. So he just straight up takes 0 Brave damage or HP damage. So even if the bosses do battery attack, he'll still take 0 damage. It also makes himself debuff immune, so he cannot be inflicted with debuffs. Additionally, he counters all Brave and HP attacks received with a self battery into a 3-hit single target Brave and HP attack, which has 50% splash, and it raises the party's bravery by 20% of brave damage dealt to the target. We're not done yet, because after he counters, he inflicts 8 turns of this debuff called Knockdown to the target's enemy. And Knockdown It lowers the target's attack and defense by 40%. And keep in mind, while this is 3 turns, you can buff extend it up to 4 turns or 5 turns if you're running 2 buff extenders. And yeah, this man is just, he can, if you time it just right, he will do so much damage, and you can just sit there and look pretty. Because Gladio, this is why Gladio is such a ridiculous character when you combine this with all his ridiculous auras.
No doubt. I mean, if you time his LD uses correctly, he can almost auto win you the fight. Like, that's how absolutely busted this man is, Alfie. Like, it's, oh boy, it's nuts. You know, he just legit does everything. Oh, it's crazy.
Yes, it is. Oh man, reviewing this just reminds me of how ridiculous Gladio is so late into JP, whose Lost Chapter is just about a month at the time of this recording.
Oh my god, and he's gonna get an LD extension, and it's, I can't even, what do you even give him? What do you even give him? Like, there's nothing left.
Nothing.
There's nothing left.
Oh man. Okay, so let us move on to the next section. His strengths. And ooh boy, is this a list.
Wow.
So
yeah, go ahead. I'll fill in here when I need to.
So first things first, if you guys have not noticed, Gladio literally batteries the party off of everything he does. Brave Plus, it's a battery. HP Plus is a battery. S1 batteries, S2 batteries, EX battery, everything. His entire kit is a battery, pretty much. So this man, he's gonna keep your bravery pretty high. His LD, a counter, batteries your party. So it's gonna be really hard to get broken because of how much battery he's giving your party, and in junction with that 60% brave reduction that we've seen earlier from his S1 buff. It's just absolutely ridiculous how much battery this man gives, which is still really, really good several months down the line.
Yeah, I mean, not only is he batterying constantly, he's given the party the brave damage reduction, he also has the debuff from his counter, which is further reducing enemy attack by 40% and then 40% defense. So, on top of him being, when he uses LD, on top of him just being legitimately immortal and cannot be inflicted with any sort of debuff whatsoever, he's making your party borderline immortal. Like, I've seen people doing, or bosses in Lufenia doing under 1,000 damage while Gladio's all of his effects are in play, because bosses are just so nerfed and gimped and there's nothing they can do. It's kind of disgusting.
Oh yeah, this man, you can put him in and you don't have to worry about dying. he protects, he's really good. Gladio offers so much powerful defensive support. Like, we're talking about Brave and HP reduction, like we just said earlier. His S1 buff gives the 60% Brave reduction, 20% HP reduction for your whole party. He has Covering, which is buff based, so even if a boss was debuff immune, he'd still work. You'll only be missing out on his knockdown debuff from the LD, but one small thing off of Gladio's kit, the rest of his kit is still amazing because this man just battery is like not like no tomorrow. And he even has healing, 20% HP regen. That is very, very potent. Granted, it has to be when he's at max stacks where it's 20%, but he will get up to 10 stacks in no time to get that 20% HP regen.
20 stacks, the man is battering, regenerating 40% HP a turn. No, it's kind of crazy when you put all these numbers in perspective, Alfie, because you think about like some potent regeners we have, like Lena, for example. Her regen is very, very strong.
Pinello, first one comes to mind. Pinello.
Yep. Pinello. Eiko. I think Eiko's is 8 or 12%. Gladio is shoving Eiko aside and saying, "Nah, girl, I got this." So he's. When I think of characters in DFFOO, I think of like a character fills like a specific role. Like, okay, that's a damage dealer, that's a tank, and then you get into subsections from there. Gladio is like this weird. I can't even call him a tank strictly, because he's this weird pseudo support, pseudo DPS, pseudo tank. He does everything. In order for a character to be balanced, you have to do some things not great and then do some other things really nice. Gladio just says, "Nah, fuck that. We're going to do everything great. We're going to literally cover damage and HP reduction, we got HP regen, we have party auras up the ass, we have enemy debuffs that you know, it's just further neutering their attack and their defense. It's like, where... I don't get it. I don't get this character in a good way. In a good way. You know, a lot of people were super hyped for Warrior of Light when his LD dropped, because the amount of HP damage your party receives is ganked, you know, while that LD effect is going. But Gladio is just... I hate... no disrespect to Warrior of Light, but Gladio is just on a different tier than Warrior of Light. He's on a different tier than everyone, but Warrior of Light just released in Global, hence why I'm referencing him. But Gladio is just on... you know, just in his own class, basically.
Yes, Gladio is a very flexible character. He just does so many things where if you remove one thing, he still contributes a lot. Say you're running a purely delay-focused comp. Well, yeah, you won't be able to counter much with Gladio, but he still has counters, he still has HP regens, and he still has a very hard-hitting EX. So you can remove one part of his kit, and he'll still have 80 to 90% of his other kit, where it still makes a very big impact on the fight.
No doubt.
He's very flexible.
Yep, and no doubt. And he also, on his counter, on his EX, he has splash and everything. His EX, I don't think you mentioned this, but his EX actually has 20% splash on each HP dump. And then his counter, of course, I believe is 50%. So, you know, not only is he, you know, whoever attacks him is immediately getting a bunch of damage to the face, but he's also, you know, he has some AoE qualities which is very helpful in Lufenia, because Lufenia, especially here in about, month and a half, 2 months in Global, we're going to start seeing turn counts and defensive auras from enemies that just gank your damage to have hell and back. And Gladio being able to just dish this much damage out while also battering at the same time, I mean, he's basically the Lufenia killer for a long time, because this guy is just, he just goes and he goes and he goes and he goes, and he just won't die. He just won't stop.
Oh, yes. First stage that comes to mind that shows how awesome and powerful Gladio is Rude's Lufenia. For those who don't know, Rude's Lufenia is a triple boss fight. 3 enemies. That is what I like to call it, Gladio's playground.
Ain't that the truth, though? Ain't that the truth?
3 enemies, and they're pretty decently fast too. So you pop that LD, and Gladio will just go on and on with that 50% battery splash, and you're probably just not gonna get broken with all that battery. 60% brave reduction. It's ridiculous. Another one that comes to my mind is Trey's Lost Chapter Lufenia. It's a Lufenia way down the line, where we're well into brave gain reduction, which is the next step in reducing, which is, as the name implies, lowered battery. Gladio still claps that stage. Those infamous Trey bosses that are super fast, that get like 2 million turns in a row. Gladio just says, haha, no, and then just keeps attacking.
Right, you know, it's funny, because those owls, their gimmick is they'll insta-break you, and then they'll either get another turn immediately after, or their high turn rate will put them one slot away. So not only are they attacking Gladio and then breaking him because of the insta-break mechanic, they then immediately get countered. And so if you're in a stage where enemy speed is high, I mean, Gladio, again, Gladio's just kind of autoing it. I know there was I can't remember what stage it was. I think it was Dimensions End 7 or 9 that you took Gladio and you soloed it. Like, you have a video of him legit just sitting there and just soloing the shit.
That is one of my most popular videos out there right now. I don't want to self-promote too much, but I brought Gladio to tier 9. On the last wave, I legitimately just did C65 into LD, and then I just beat the stage because the stone golem kept delaying Gladio.
Yes. I watched this video, guys, and I kid you not, it's comical. I'll leave a link to that video in the description of this vid if you'd like to check it out. But literally, he LDs with Gladio, and then he just sits there. He could have walked off, made a sandwich. He could have watched TV. You know, it's just stupid. It's just stupid. But man, is it funny.
Oh yeah, and another stage, this is going to be my last point before we move on to his weaknesses, because despite being such an awesome character, he does have weaknesses, surprisingly enough. Another very great stage for Gladio was Terra's Burst Lufenia stage, which I believe was Act 3, Chapter 2, Part 1. I think it has the oh so lovely Humbabas with their breath attack that delays you into oblivion. Well, Gladio, well, he can get delayed all he wants. So that infamous Humbaba breath that delays you into the next friggin' year, that's fine for Gladio. More turns for his counter. So certain fights, it's just he can really help your damage output, and it's ridiculous how useful this man still is, even when Brave Game Reduction starts being really potent.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it's, normally what would be a weakness for characters, getting delayed into the next year and pushed up the turn bar. Gladio's totally okay with it. He can just take advantage of that all day and all night. But yeah, so Alpha, you mentioned Gladio's weaknesses. So one weakness that I can definitely think of off the top of my head is his LD. So he has 3 uses of that LD. The thing with his LD is that, as absurdly strong as it is only 3 turns that buff. Now, it can be buff extended. It can be buff extended up to 4 turns if you have 1 buff extender. The buff extenders are, top of my head, Hope, Eiko, and Saz. I think, is that all of them, Alfie, or am I missing one?
Yuna is one of them.
Yuna.
With their S1,
yep.
I believe.
Yep, Yuna's the last one. So you have these 4 characters, so they can extend it up 1, and if you're running 2 of those characters, you can then extend it up to 5. So that would be, 15 turns max of having that LD active. If you don't have a buff extender, that LD buff is only 3 turns. Now, as great as Gladio's other frame buffs are, by far and away, his bread and butter is that LD buff and that counter. And if you blow that LD and you use it, willy-nilly, or you don't pace yourself through the fight, you could definitely find yourself in a situation later on where Gladio does not have access to that counter, and things get dicey from there. Because while that counter is active, while he has all of his skills and he's raring and rolling, he's unstoppable. When he loses that LD, that's a big hit to his kit, for sure.
A big hit. His damage output drastically decreases, because that LD is why Gladio is such a ridiculous character. Pretty much when you're using Gladio, it's going to be how many times can I get Gladio to use his counter? Because that's just his best DPS tool. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, you're really in, I'm sorry not to interrupt, but you're really in a fight. You're really looking for an opportunity where you can feel like you can capitalize on that LD, because these Lufenia stages, they can get, despite the turn counts being low, these stages can take a long time due to annoying ass boss mechanics, and so you really kind of try and figure out when the best time to pop one of those LDs are. Yeah,
you definitely. And he does have other weaknesses. That's not his only weakness. One weakness I can come up with is that Gladio's main tanking mechanic, it's similar to Gallop. It's based off of a buff on his teammates. It's on his teammates, not himself. So it's 10 turns, so it's a lot longer compared to Gallop's, but regardless, very fast characters, very turn-hogging characters like Noctis, Arden, and Lightning, they can burn through that buff pretty quickly. And you could find yourself in a situation where you might have turned hard with, say, Lightning a little bit too much, and then the boss just decides to do a Brave plus HP attack on her, and then, yeah, you don't want to turn hard too much with those characters, and that's definitely a weakness of Gladio, that his main tanking mechanic is based off of a buff on his teammates.
Yeah, for sure. Being very most characters in the game at this point are very heavily buff reliant. But Gladio's basically, his entire kit revolves around these buffs being active. So turn hogging can be a problem. Something else that Gladio also has a problem with is he, I believe, has 4 framed buffs on himself, which only leaves 2 open slots for your team. So there's definitely potential for some buff pushage on him, which I know for some people isn't a big issue, but for other people, where they really like to optimize their comps, can definitely be a problem, because again, Gladio is eating up 66% of those slots just right off the bat when he has all of his stuff active. So that's another, it's a small one, but in certain fights where like debuffs are heavy or whatever, it's going to be kind of hard to keep those other buffs on.
Definitely. And another thing to keep in note is that Dispel really hurts Gladio very, very strongly, especially his 2 stack buffs. because one of them is only granted on his EX, which you're definitely not going to have all the time, and the other one is tied to his S1. Most importantly, that's also one of that EX buff is the one with HP regen. So if you're running Gladio as a solo healer, that gets dispelled. You're gonna be rocking 2% heal to 4%, whatever percent heal for a long time, because Gladio has to keep building up those stacks back up to 20%. There's not a lot of them, not a lot of dispelling frequently bosses. Only the couple ones that come to my mind are Theodore's Lufenia. Those bosses recast dispelled one buff from your party. Ulti's Lufenia, I believe at 50% they dispel 3 buffs, so that could really hurt Gladio. And Mog's Lufenia, that boss that boss does a lot of dispelling.
Yeah.
So yeah, dispel really hurts Gladio. But regardless, if you play around with it enough, you should be able. If you play around with it enough, then he can still do some mad work, especially since his battery is still amazing.
No doubt, no doubt. And it's the thing about Gladio as well with his stacks is that as opposed to other characters where they have, like let's say Arden for example, where he caps out at 5 stacks on his Fedora buff. Gladio's his stacks go up to 10. Now that 10 isn't too. It sounds like a lot, but it's not a lot, because whenever he takes an attack, some of his stacks go up. But if those get dispelled, or whatever, or if those buffs run out, then that's definitely, it's going to be a hard climb to get those buffs back on and going again. So you can definitely use Gladio in those dispel stages, but it's going to be a lot more difficult for sure.
It's definitely not going to be auto compared to other Gladio stages.
No, absolutely not. No.
Yeah. And another thing that's really important is Gladio does have Last Stand for whatever reason.
Yeah, just on the rare opportunity a boss immediately dispels and then 99k ganks him, yeah, he'll still be okay.
Yeah, Gladio does have Last Stand, but that Last Stand is tied to his S2 buff. So do not expect him to tank a full dispel single target attack. Those aren't common. Usually those only happen if you fail to do boss mechanics. But yeah, don't expect Gladio to just eat the hit and be completely fine, because he will drop. Even gods can die.
Yes, on a very rare occasion, yes, a Lufenia orb can make a god drop to his knees, for sure.
Okay, and I got one more weakness for him here. His shaving output is pretty low. Because a lot of his attacks are mainly battery based. That's where most of his damage comes from, is all of his batteries. So it can be pretty dangerous for Gladio depending on the boss. Like I said earlier, I mentioned Trey's Lost Chapter Lufenia earlier. Those infamous bats, they can ignore Brave and HP reduction. So that can cut through Gladio's LD buff. If Gladio takes an HP hit, he gets dropped down to 1. The second bat could easily just go, haha, you're dead, even if you have your LD buff on. So yeah, his shaving output's pretty low. It can be really dangerous depending on the boss, depending on how much Brave and or HP reduction they have. So that's something to keep in mind. And yeah, that's it for me. You have any other things to say, Soul?
No. I think we covered it. Going with that shaving thing, his EX does hit pretty darn hard. But outside of that EX, yeah, I don't think he's a very good shaver. I mean, he's okay, but his main game is making your entire team immortal and battery. So I wouldn't, don't be trying to take him into a stage expecting him to be the main shaving option you got, because yeah, that's not gonna turn out too hot there.
Yeah, don't be discouraged if you see Gladio hitting for 2,000. Don't look at the Brave hits, look at the HP damage, because his damage mainly comes from his own battery.
No doubt. So we've talked about his strengths and his weaknesses. So Alfie, in your opinion, you've used this man a bunch in JP. What are some units off the top of your head, either that we already have in Global right now, or maybe in some units still be getting down the road? What units do you think work really well with him?
Oh boy, I actually have a nice list for this one.
Got a list. Okay, let's go. Let's hear it.
Okay, so different types of it's situated in different types of roles. So obviously we talked about buff extenders earlier. Buff extenders are amazing with Gladio because his LD buff can be extended. So Hope, Saz, Ico, and Yuna, those are good options to pair with Gladio. because it'll just let Gladio counter even longer than he could potentially can. And another important one are Overflow Buffers. This man batteries a lot, and you're gonna have a hard time trying to hold all that bravery. So Edward, Karasume, and Aerith, especially Aerith when she gets her LD later down the line, those are a few nice ones to pair with Gladio, just because they grant that nice overflow for your party, and that lets Gladio deal a lot more damage and lets your party hold more bravery as well. And this is my favorite list. You can pair Gladio with additional counter or trap characters. Gao is coming really, really soon. Gao will counter alongside Gladio's counter. You can have 2 counters pop off. Gao, Furion, when he gets his LD and burst later, his LD inflicts a trap debuff, so you can get a lot of battery real fast. Trey, he's a nice one. He has lots of traps as well, and his S1 buff also batteries the party, so you're gonna have some nice battery shenanigans. And Emperor is another nice one. Emperor gives so many explosions, and it is ridiculous how much off-turn damage you can dish out with Gladio.
Yeah, Emperor's certainly a huge 4th of July fan, that's for sure. Yeah, it's when you pair Gladio with counter characters or trap characters, I mean, it's just stupid. Like Gao and Furion especially, where they battery off of their counters or they heal up their counters, and then Gladio's then popping off and battering even more. It's just silly. It's just a treat to watch.
Oh yeah, there's a reason why Gao is a Lost Chapter synergy for Gladio. It is. Those two are very fun to mess around with. It's great. Lots of counters, and then you toss in Furion or Emperor Trey or something, and you can get a lot of off-turn damage. You'll deal like over 100,000 on the boss's turn.
Yeah, right. On the boss's turn when they're supposed to be safe. Yeah. I think he loves aura characters, especially characters that lean towards attack, because Gladio does battery himself based on his attack on his counter from his LD. So if you're running characters that are able to either give him like a generic attack buff or a framed attack buff or even just some auras, he's going to love that, because that allows him to pop off and battery even more. So I'm talking like characters, that kind of just stand there and do their thing. Or even Karasume with his debuff. We just got him in Global, and Karasume's deal is his debuff. The enemies take extra HP damage as long as that debuff is up, which is always up. It's just at varying stacks. Gladio loves that. Anything to just artificially increase this man's already loaded attack power is just, he's gonna love it. He's absolutely gonna love it. You don't even need to bring a healer, because he can be your healer, when he hits that 20% regen, as long as bosses aren't doing crazy amount of like AoE attacks or anything like that. So yeah, I characters that can really kind of aura and boost those stats up just by standing there, he loves those too.
You mentioned attack buffers. The first one that instantly came to mind was Ramza. He's coming up pretty soon on Divine Diabolos. Oh. That man is loaded on auras. He has attack up, regen, lots of goodies. He even has launches on his LD when he comes around.
So excited.
Gladio will be Gladio will be capping out, and then when you finally get to act after Gladio is having fun in the playground, you can launch with Ramza. Get Gladio to expend all that brave in the launch, and it's just ridiculous. Gladio and Ramza are a really nice pair. I like those two a lot.
For sure. Ramza can batter people up. He's got the free turns, so on top of you having just counters for days, you're also getting free turns with Ramza's HP plus, and all the battery and all wisdom. Oh, it's just silly. Oh, it's just delicious. I love it.
Yeah. So all in all, the best way I can describe Gladio is he's a jack of all trades. He's a jack of all trades character if he was good at everything he did. So now,
that's very accurate. He's very much a jack of all trades character. The problem with jack of all trades characters is that they're supposed to be, good at everything, master of none. Gladio is master of many, not bad at some. Like, there's really not a whole lot this man cannot do, guys. Like, it's take it from us. Like, Alfie's been using him in JP. Been seeing him used now for 10 months now.
I love Gladio.
Yeah, and
big 15 fan. I love Gladio.
Yeah, and I've been watching JP content. I always kind of watch to keep up on what's going on, and I still see Gladio being used. This dude is doing jack for damage. Like, he's doing like 1,000 a hit, because his actual potencies themselves are not that great. Lufenia's auras and whatnot are really killing him there, but he's still being used because he makes the party immortal. He has all the battery, he has the splash damage, he has the counters. This dude, I don't know how else to say it. I don't know how I can keep saying it in so many ways, where this dude is still being used and he's doing like jack shit for actual brave damage, but he's still holding up his end of the game. It's pretty remarkable.
Yes, this man is, I think, the most frequently used character from their event debut to Lost Chapter. I don't think there's any other character that's been like that. I think the closest was probably Keis, or Kais, however you pronounce it. He was used pretty frequently, but Gladio, in my opinion, was used way more frequently.
Yeah, no, I agree. And the thing with Keis is that you can make enemies launch immune. What are you gonna do with Gladio? You know, like what? You know, he just does his thing. You know, dispel.
They've tried to cut Gladio, and Gladio still claps. That trade, Lost Chapter Lufenia, they really tried to cut Gladio by making them ignore Brave reduction and HP reductions 24/7, but Gladio just laughs at it, and he doesn't care. He still goes on and on.
It's true. He just goes. Like that stage especially was legit built from the ground up with the idea of, hey, let's make sure people don't use Gladio because he'll just absolutely fucking destroy the stage. And what happened? The first run I see in my inbox, my sub feed on YouTube, is a goddamn Gladio run. And I'm like, of course. Well, of course. Sure. Why not?
Okay. Oh man. Yeah. One thing I must make really clear though, Gladio is by no means necessary. I can 100% guarantee you there is at least one clear in every Lufenia without Gladio, even in the upcoming next month of Lufenias, which is certainly a thing. Oh boy. But yeah, Gladio is by no means needed, but he does take a lot of stress off of your shoulders.
For sure. No character is ever 100% absolutely needed. Gladio is as good as he is. You know, he's very... I'm not trying to undersell this man. He's exceptional, but he can be skipped. I mean, the very beginning of Cosmos era, where Light got his rework and whatnot, his extension where he gave shields to the whole party, and people were using him left and right, and people were using Vayne, and you can't skip Vayne. Vayne is this good and that. You can skip people. There's alternatives. Which, speaking of Alfie, look at this transition, man. I'm getting good at this. What are some unit alternatives to Gladio? So right off the bat, we already talked about him earlier. Warrior of Light. Warrior of Light has massive amounts of HP damage reduction to the party. He has the shield to the entire party. So while he's not necessarily going to take the hit for your characters and then launch a counter, he's just going to straight up just prevent damage, you know? He has some nice auras, he has some healing, so I think Warrior of Light is definitely a nice alternative as a tank to what Gladio can do. Now, he can't do what Gladio does because Gladio, again, is kind of in his own tier, but Warrior of Light, I think, is a very, very nice substitute.
Yeah, it's hard to make alternate characters for Gladio because the man just does so much, so there's really only parts of Gladio's kit that I could really just find alternatives for, like tanks.
Yes.
You said Warrior of Light. I agree, Warrior of Light's an amazing choice. He's still a great tank, lots of nice batteries. He'll fall short on the damage department in comparison to Gladio, but Warrior of Light's still really nice. He's still a great tank. Shields are really, really helpful against very AoE HP spammy bosses. I think Bosch is also a nice option, granted if the stage is not lock immune or if there aren't any double HP dumps, because double HP dumps will destroy Bosch. And there's been a couple Lufenias where there's been double HP dumps, but Bosch is another great alternative for the tank role. If you really want to wait, I believe the next tank after Gladio is Guy. I think it's Guy.
I think you, unless we're forgetting something, I think you're right. I think you're right about that.
Which is pretty long because that's an LD boards era. Guy, he also works. He has a nice little cashback effect for your party. He has Earth Enchant, and he has some pretty nice healing. He could also work if you need a tank. Though the Brave Game Reduction does hurt Guy a little bit. You'll have to play around with some defensive buffs for your party, but I think Guy will also be really handy. Now, if you're going to be using Gladio for battery, say you're running a purely delay comp, and say you're running a pure delay comp, a substitute for Gladio in that type of situation would be characters like Rude, who is a very, very popular character coming up as well. this next month. And Firion can also work in delay comps as well because he offers a lot of battery.
Yeah, I think the one character that people would offer as a viable alternative to Gladio in terms of what he can do is probably Rude, because Rude batteries like his life actually depends on it. He heals like his life depends on it. He does a lot. Rude is very, very, very loaded. A lot of people are excited for his event, including myself. So I think Rude is definitely a great alternative to Gladio because, yeah, again, Rude is, man, talk about another loaded kit. My God, we might have to touch on Rude here, man. I don't know.
Maybe.
Ooh, maybe. Ooh, I don't know. We'll see.
Okay, so now, because I'm pretty sure everyone who is still watching in this video, which I'm very surprised, I'm pretty sure they're very curious. Are you going to be pulling for Gladio, Soul?
Gosh, I just don't know. People always ask me who's my next draw target, and I like to fuck with them, and I tell them, I don't know. We'll see. No. So for the longest time, I had my eyes set on Warrior of Light and his LD. That was going to be my go-to tank for early Lufenia era. And as I got closer and closer, I realized, you know what? I really don't like Warrior of Light's kit. A lot of people really enjoy his kit. I don't. I find it pretty boring. I just didn't really enjoy it. So I elected to skip that, and the reason I was skipping is because, yes, I'm drawing for Gladio. Now, Gladio is so stupidly strong, especially, after he first releases, leaving like a few months down the line. I don't know how much I'll be using him. Gladio is pretty much, I've heard some other people say this as well, and I think this is pretty funny. Gladio is going to be my break glass in case of emergency character. If I run into a Lufenia that I just cannot fucking beat for whatever reason, I'm taking too much HP damage, or characters are just getting wiped, or whatever, Gladio is going to be my character that I put in the comp. I'm like, okay, I know we're going to get this done now. I'm going to have battery and HP, stuff for days and counters. Let's get this done. So I don't know how much I'll be using him, but I definitely want to grab him because I know there's going to be a bullshit Lufenia stage at some point I run into, and I'm going to need him. I already know it because Lufenia just gets absurd sometimes. So yes, I am definitely
drawing. Next month.
What's that?
Especially next month. Oh boy.
Yeah, boy. Let's certain Reno's, the fog tree, the mist tree, whatever that is from Final Fantasy 9, and then
one-winged angels. Oh, so infamous stage.
The one-winged donuts heretic with the pain story chapter imps that they just throw up 90,000 strength shields just randomly. They'll just stand there and do it. It's. I can't talk about that. I'm already stressed out. But yeah, there's gonna be Lufenia stages in the future, guys, where you're gonna need that extra bit of oomph. And if you don't draw for Gladio, that's cool. If you do draw for him, I promise you will not regret it for even a second. And there's gonna be stages where this man is the MVP. So, Alfie, I know you already drew for him in JP. You used this man. Are you gonna repeat that in the global side?
Yes, because I love 15. 15 is one of my top 3 games, right next to 13 and 14. So I'm going to be pulling for Gladio to complete my Choco Bros. He is the last 15 character I need to pull for a good while until RNA is LD. But I'm not going to spam him as much as possible. I'm not going to spam him a lot as I did on JP. I'll use him on occasion because I just like Gladio. But yeah, I'm still going to pull for him. I'm just not going to spam him as much as I did back on JP. I've had my fun with him.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah. He's definitely a great pickup, but yeah, he's like I think a good example is how like Arnea was when she first hit global. I mean, she was so freakishly strong, did things that no other character did, that she was literally everywhere. And I have a strong feeling that Gladio is going to be seeing the same kind of resurrection global where he's literally everywhere. So yeah, I'm going to do the same. Use him sparingly and enjoy him when I do, but for the sake of not getting bored with the game, he'll probably be right on the bench for a while.
Okay, and I believe we are done. I think that's everything. We've covered Gladio's kit, we covered his strengths, his weaknesses, who he pairs really nice with, and alternative characters for Gladio, which spoilers, there's not very much, but yeah, we are done. Oh man, hopefully this helped. Hopefully this helps, because this man is loaded. This man is, like we said earlier, a jack of all trades if he was good at everything.
Yes.
So again, I have to stress this enough. Gladio is not needed. I can 100% guarantee you, as someone who has played JP in the entirety of Lufenia so far, that he is not needed. I can guarantee you that there is one run on every Lufenia that there is that does not use Gladio. So that's going to be it for me. Is there anything you want to say last, Soul?
Not really. I mean, for everyone that's still watching, I'm sitting here looking, because me and Alfie are in a call right now. I'm sitting here looking. We're sitting at 55 minutes. Now, I don't know how long this video is going to be, but if I had to guess, it's probably going to be upwards of 45 minutes, maybe a little bit more. So, to everyone that's still here, thank you. Thank you from the both of us. We really appreciate you guys taking the time to sit here and listen. It's always fun doing these and kind of having like a fireside chat, with a friend and discussing some DFFOO and having a good time. So I appreciate you, Alfie, for having me on, man. This was fun. I really enjoyed doing this with you, for sure.
Yeah, no problem. And hello everyone on Soul's side as well. Hopefully, maybe some of you recognize me, maybe some of you don't. Probably most of you don't, but yeah.
Like I said, guys, earlier, I will link Alfie's Dimensions End 9 Gladio run down below if you would like to check it out. It's hysterical.
One of my favorite runs. It's so good.
It's hysterical. It's one of the funniest runs I've seen, because it's Dimensions End and it's just getting trampled, and it's glorious. And I'll link his channel down below, guys, for sure. But yeah, Alfie, again, thank you so much for having me, man. This was a blast, and yeah, here's hoping we do another one of these kind of things here pretty soon.
Yeah, no problem. And with that, we are done, and I will see you all in my next video, which probably won't have commentary. So yeah, bye bye.
Take care, everyone.